God chose Jacob. Hello. I hope you have read chapter 9 carefully, and that will help you to focus on what we're talking about. Other things to discuss, it's not related to this, let's leave those aside for now. If you've not yet read chapter 9, I appreciate you go ahead and read that now. Okay? We're going to back up now and read a few verses before to see what the apostle said right before this verse that we're going to study. See how it fits in. For not all who are descended from Israel belong to Israel, and not all are children of Abraham because they are his offspring. But through Isaac shall your offspring be named. This means that it is not the children of the flesh who are the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted as offspring. For this is what the promise said, about this time next year I will return, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only so, but also when Rebekah had conceived children by one man, our forefather Isaac. Now, let's look at verse 11, our verse for today that we're going to study. We're going to look at the first part of it. Though they were not yet born, and had done nothing either good or bad, in order that God's purpose of election might continue. Following the Apostle Paul's discussion, well, of course, he's talking about Rebekah, who is pregnant with the twin boys. She'd not yet given birth. We recently read the verses up above the verse for today, and it talks about Abraham and what happened. It's very important that we know the story of Abraham all the way through the twin boys, to help us understand the purpose of election. The twin boys, Esau and his brother Jacob, they'd not yet been born, right? They'd not yet had opportunity to do anything that was good or anything that was bad. No, they were still babies inside their mother's womb. So they'd not had opportunity to interact with the world either, good or bad, nothing. I want to make this very, very clear as we look back in Genesis to the original story about them. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is thus, why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. That verse, Rebecca, she was feeling inside her like there was a war going on. Why was this happening to her? Well, the Lord answered her, and it's very interesting what he said. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, the older shall serve the younger." That verse, God is talking to Rebekah. Let's make clear what he's saying. First, he's saying that the sons will become nations, divided. One will be one people, and the other will be another people. Now, that's first. Secondly, the babies oppose one another. Thirdly, Esau would become stronger than his brother Jacob. Now, fourth and last, and this is very interesting, it's very important. The Lord is sovereign over all. And he was talking to Rebekah, and he said that the baby born first would serve the child born second. What? Let's look again at that verse. The older shall serve the younger. What? Do you see what that said? The older child, Esau, he was born first, and God's telling Rebekah that he would serve his younger brother Jacob. That's pretty shocking news that he told her. Why is this such shocking news? Well, it's because a long time ago during their culture, the firstborn son would receive the blessing. Now, it's switched. The second son born will receive the blessing. Well, Esau was born first, so why? God had decided He elected Jacob. Jacob, did he grow up to being a good boy and he was elected? No. The verse says nothing about that. In fact, it says that they were both in their mother's womb when God said this, having no opportunity for good or bad. God made the decision, period. Let's look at more of this story about the two brothers. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak, so they called his name Esau. Afterward his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Interesting. The second twin son that was born grabbed onto the heel of his older brother Esau. Grabbed onto it as he was being born. Now, the second brother that was being born, Jacob, why did they name him Jacob? Well, his name, it means heel catcher. And of course, he grabbed onto his heel as he was being born. This lesson, how do we apply it to our life today? There's some preachers who teach and say that salvation will be evident. It will be evident in the things that we do. Well, if we go off and sin, then we would lose salvation. Well, hold on to that. Jacob, first of all, he had not done anything good or bad. No, not when God chose him. God made the decision, period. Of course, sin would come later, and we're going to study about that later. But would he lose the blessing? No. God made the decision that Jacob would receive the blessing while he was still in the womb. Yes, his purpose of election was on Jacob and not Esau before they had a chance to do good or bad. Well, wait. Now, what about faith in Christ for salvation? Is that important? Yes, of course it is. We're going to discuss about that a little bit later, but right now, God has made the decision. It has nothing to do with something that Jacob did first. It's not dependent on Jacob. There's no argument about that. God is sovereign. He made the decision himself. Is he a bad God? No. We're going to look later in chapter 9 and read about this, that he's very good. Coram Deo. To live coram Deo is to live one's entire life in the presence of God, under the authority of God, to the glory of God.